Good evening all, and welcome back to Silent Souls. Tonight, we step into the flickering neon glow of the loneliest outposts on Earth with 10 of the most disturbing true gas station night shift horror stories. These unsettling accounts come directly from the weary voices of cashiers, attendants, and lone workers who face the unexplainable in the dead of night. From rural pumps on forgotten highways to urban stations under buzzing lights, each tale is a verified brush with the unknown, drawn from first-hand reports and corroborated details. These are not campfire yarns or urban myths, but real encounters that left those who lived them forever changed. If you're new here, subscribe to Silent Souls for daily true horror content that probes the darkest corners of human experience. Hit that notification bell to never miss a tale from the shadows. Now, lock the doors and keep an eye on the pumps as we venture into the eerie world of gas station night shifts, where the hum of the cooler hides something far more sinister than silence. The City Glow Gas and Go sat on a busy corner in Springfield, Illinois, where neon lights and honking horns kept the night alive. Its sign blazed red and yellow, illuminating the 4 pumps that stood like sentinels under a flickering canopy. At 11:42 p.m., the station was a hub of activity cars pulling in for quick fill-ups, late-night commuters grabbing coffee, and the occasional loiterer lingering in the lot. But even in the urban bustle, the gas station felt like a world apart, a liminal space where the rules of reality seemed to bend. Maya Torres stood behind the counter, her hands busy restocking cigarette packs, her eyes scanning the lot through the bulletproof glass. At 25, Maya was a sharp, no-nonsense woman with a buzzed undercut and a tattoo of a sparrow on her wrist. She'd been working the night shift for a year, ever since dropping out of nursing school to help pay her brother's medical bills. The job was chaotic, dealing with rude customers, cleaning up spills, and dodging creeps, but it paid well, and Maya was good at keeping her cool. The security monitor sat to her left, its grainy feed showing the pumps in constant motion. A sedan at pump 1, a pickup at pump 3. Pump 4, though, was empty, its nozzle untouched under the flickering lights. The cooler hummed in the back, a steady drone that blended with the city's noise traffic, sirens, the distant thump of bass from a passing car. Maya glanced at the clock. 11:45 p.m., another 6 hours to go. Then, a flicker on the monitor caught her eye. Pump 4. A shadow moved across the frame, quick and fluid, like a figure darting out of sight. Maya frowned, leaning closer. The lot was busy, but Pump 4 was still empty, no cars, no people. She rewound the footage, her fingers hovering over the controls. There it was again, a dark, human-like shape sliding across the pavement near Pump 4, then vanishing. It didn't belong to any customer, didn't cast a reflection in the puddles on the ground. Maya shook her head, muttering, "Glitchy piece of junk." She jotted a note in the logbook. Asterisk 11:45 p.m. Shadow on Pump 4 camera. No one there. Asterisk. She figured it was a trick of the light, maybe a car's headlights playing tricks. But the shadow lingered in her mind, sharp and unnatural, like a stain on the edge of her vision. The next night, Maya came to work with a slight unease. She hadn't slept well, her dreams filled with fleeting shadows and the hum of the gas station's lights. She'd told her coworker, Jamal, about the shadow, but he'd shrugged it off. "Those cameras are ancient, Maya. They see ghosts all the time." But his laugh was forced, and Maya noticed he avoided Pump 4 when he took out the trash. She brought a small flashlight and a notebook, determined to keep track of anything odd. The station was as busy as ever, cars pulling in and out, the air thick with exhaust, and the scent of fried food from the diner across the street. At 11:45 p.m., the monitor flickered. Maya's heart skipped as she saw the shadow at Pump 4, moving faster this time, circling the pump like a predator. She checked the lot through the glass. Pump 4 was empty, the pavement gleaming under the canopy lights. She rewound the footage, her pulse quickening. The shadow was clearer now, vaguely human, its edges blurred as if it were made of smoke. It paused near the pump, its head tilting toward the camera, and for a split second, Maya saw eyes glinting, unblinking, like coins catching the light. Then it was gone, the footage returning to normal. Maya stepped outside, the city noise a stark contrast to the silence in her head. She shone her flashlight at pump 4, expecting to see nothing. But there, on the pavement, was a faint smudge, dark, oily, like a footprint that didn't quite fit a human shoe. She touched it, her fingers coming away clean, but the air felt colder, the canopy lights flickering above her. Back inside, she wrote in her notebook, *11:45 p.m., shadow at pump 4, clearer, looks at camera. Smudge on pavement. *. She turned up the radio, trying to drown out the unease, but the cooler's hum seemed louder, almost synchronized with the flickering lights. She glanced at the monitor every few minutes, half expecting the shadow to return. By the third night, Maya was on edge. She hadn't told anyone else about the shadow, afraid they'd think she was losing it. She'd spent the day searching online for anything about City Glow Gas and Go, finding only complaints about overpriced snacks. Her dreams were worse, now dark. Endless lots where shadows moved just out of sight, their eyes glinting in the dark. She brought a pocket knife and a small silver charm, a gift from her mother, taping it to the counter for luck. At 11:45 p.m., the shadow appeared again, now a constant presence on the pump 4 camera. It was bolder, lingering longer, its form more defined, a tall, thin figure with unnaturally long limbs. Maya watched, frozen, as it moved closer to the camera, its head tilting as if studying her. The eyes were unmistakable now, glowing with an unnatural light, fixed on the lens. She stepped outside, gripping the flashlight, the city noise fading into a dull roar in her ears. The smudge was back, larger, a trail of oily marks circling pump 4. She shone the light, her breath catching as the shadow flickered in the beam, not on the monitor, but in the real world, a dark shape at the edge of the lot. It moved, darting behind the pump, and Maya felt a cold brush against her shoulder, like icy fingers grazing her skin. She screamed, stumbling back, the flashlight beam swinging wildly. The lot was empty, the smudge gone, but her shoulder burned, a red mark visible under her jacket. Back inside, she locked the door, her hands trembling. The footage showed the shadow at pump 4. Closer now, its eyes locked on the camera. The audio picked up a faint whisper, barely audible. "I see you," Maya wrote in her notebook. *11:45 p.m., shadow at pump 4. Touched me, whispered, "I see you." Mark on shoulder. *. She didn't sleep that day, the burn on her shoulder throbbing, the whisper echoing in her mind. Maya didn't go home after her shift. She drove to the Springfield Library, her notebook clutched like a lifeline. She needed answers. The shadow wasn't a glitch, it was real, and it was targeting her. She spent hours searching old newspapers, her eyes burning from lack of sleep, until she found it. A 1999 article, "Tragic Robbery at City Glow Gas and Go." A night shift cashier, Marcus Reed, had been killed during a robbery gone wrong. The article described a suspect, a tall, thin man who fled into the night, last seen near pump 4. No one was ever caught, and the station had closed for a month after the incident. Maya's stomach churned. She printed the article and confronted her boss, Linda, before her next shift. Linda, a tired woman in her 40s, sighed heavily. "That was a bad time, Maya. Don't dig it up. It's just a job." But her eyes avoided Maya's, and she quickly changed the subject. That night, Maya brought a tire iron, stashing it under the counter. She taped Marcus's article next to the silver charm, her hands shaking. The station felt different, darker, the air heavy with the scent of oil and something metallic, like blood. She watched the clock, dreading 11:45 p.m. At 11:45 p.m., the monitor flickered. The shadow was there, at pump 4, its form solid, now a tall, thin figure with glowing eyes, standing motionless. Maya gripped the tire iron, her heart pounding. The footage looped, the shadow moving closer with each pass, its eyes never leaving the camera. She pressed the intercom, shouting, "What do you want?" The speaker crackled, the whisper louder. "I see you, Maya." The lights flickered, the cooler's hum rising to a scream. Maya ran outside, the tire iron raised, the city noise drowned out by the blood rushing in her ears. The shadow was there, real, standing at pump 4. Its eyes glowed, its form shifting like smoke, and it moved toward her, silent and swift. Maya swung the tire iron, but it passed through the shadow, the metal clanging against the pump. The shadow lunged, its icy fingers brushing her shoulder again, the burn searing through her skin. Maya screamed, stumbling back, and the shadow whispered, "Stay with me." The lights went out, plunging the lot into darkness. Maya ran inside, locking the door, but the shadow was there, inside, its eyes glowing in the monitor static. She swung the tire iron at the monitor, shattering the screen. The lights snapped back on, the shadow gone, but the burn on her shoulder spread, a red, angry mark in the shape of a hand. The silver charm on the counter was blackened, as if scorched. Maya quit the next day, leaving a note for Linda, *undone. Pump 4 is haunted. *. She moved to Chicago, taking a job at a coffee shop, day shifts only. But the shadow followed. In quiet moments, she'd see it a flicker in a window, a glint of eyes in a mirror. The burn on her shoulder never faded, and sometimes, at 11:45 p.m., she'd feel a cold brush against her skin, the whisper echoing, "I see you." She never returned to City Glow, but she heard from Jamal that the shadow still appeared on the Pump 4 camera, watching, waiting, its eyes glowing in the dark. The North Star Fuel Depot sat on a desolate stretch of County Road 12 in northern Minnesota, where the horizon was swallowed by snow-covered pines and endless white. Its sign flickered, the neon barely cutting through the swirling blizzard that blanketed the lot. At 213A, the station was a lonely outpost, its fluorescent lights casting a cold glow over the snowdrifts piling against the pumps. Sophie Larson stood behind the counter, her gloved hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, her breath fogging in the chilly air. At 30, Sophie was a sturdy woman with wine-burned cheeks and a braid tucked under a knit cap. She'd moved back to her hometown of Black Pine after a messy breakup, taking the night shift at North Star to save for a fresh start. The job was grueling, shoveling snow, restocking frozen shelves, and dealing with the occasional stranded motorist, but it was steady work, and Sophie was used to toughing it out. The security monitor sat on the counter, its grainy feed showing the 3 pumps outside, half buried in snow. The wind howled, rattling the glass doors, and the cooler in the back hummed, its drone a constant companion in the silence. Sophie glanced at the clock. 2:15 a.m., 4 hours to go. Then she noticed it a faint trail in the snow, visible on the monitor near Pump 2. Footprints, fresh and clear, leading from the edge of the lot toward the station's door. Sophie frowned, leaning closer. The lot was empty. No cars, no people, just the blizzard's relentless churn. The footprints stopped at the door, as if someone had stood there waiting. She grabbed her flashlight and stepped outside, the wind biting her face. The snow was falling hard, but the footprints were pristine, unaffected by the storm. They were large, boot-like, with deep treads that suggested weight, but there were no tracks leading away, just a single path to the door. Sophie shone the light across the lot, her heart pounding. Nothing. The pumps stood silent, the snow piling higher. Back inside, she checked the footage. The footprints appeared at 213A, forming one by one, as if someone walked through the storm without disturbing it. No figure was visible, just the prince, materializing out of nowhere. Sophie wrote in the logbook, Asterisk 213A, footprints in snow to door. No one in lot. Asterisk. She told herself it was a trick of the wind, but the prints haunted her, their clarity unnatural in the blizzard's chaos. The next night, Sophie came to work with a knot in her stomach. She hadn't slept well, her dreams filled with endless snow and footprints that followed her through the dark. She told her cousin Emma about the prince, but Emma had brushed it off. Snow plays tricks, Soph. You're just stir-crazy out there. But Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that the footprints were watching her, waiting. She brought a shovel and a notebook, determined to document anything strange. The blizzard had eased, leaving a fresh layer of snow that blanketed the lot. The monitor showed the pumps, still and quiet, the footprints from last night gone, swept away by the storm. At 2:13 am, the screen flickered, and the footprints appeared again, leading from the lot's edge to the door, clearer this time, deeper, as if pressed with intent. Sophie stepped outside, the shovel gripped like a weapon. The footprints were there, untouched by the wind, stopping inches from the door. She swept the snow away, erasing the trail, but the cold seemed to cling to her, heavier than before. Back inside, she rewound the footage. The prints formed in real time, one step at a time, but no figure appeared, no shadow, no shape. The audio picked up a faint sound, like a sigh, carried on the wind. Sophie wrote in her notebook, Asterisk 2:13 a.m., footprints to door, no one visible. Sigh on audio. Asterisk. The cooler's hum grew louder, almost rhythmic, like footsteps crunching in snow. She turned up the radio, trying to drown it out, but her eyes kept darting to the monitor, expecting the prince to return. By the third night, Sophie was fraying. She hadn't told anyone else about the footprints, afraid they'd think she was losing it. She'd spent the day searching online for anything about North Star Fuel Depot, finding only a few reviews mentioning the eerie vibe of the place. Her dreams were worse, now footprints circling her in a blizzard, leading to a dark figure just out of sight. She brought a pocket knife and a small iron cross, a gift from her grandmother, taping it to the counter for protection. At 2:13 a, the footprints appeared, now leading past the door into the station itself. Sophie's heart stopped as she checked the monitor. The prints were inside, faint tracks of snow and mud trailing across the linoleum to the counter. She spun around, the flashlight beam trembling, but the station was empty, the door locked. The prince stopped at the counter, inches from her feet, as if someone stood there, watching. She checked the footage, her hands shaking. The prints formed inside the station, materializing on the floor, but no figure appeared. The audio captured the sigh again, louder, almost a whisper. Find me. Sophie's skin prickled. She swept the prints away with the shovel, her breath ragged, but the cold lingered, the air heavy with the scent of snow and something older, like damp earth. Sophie called Emma, her voice trembling. Something's in the station, Em. It's leaving footprints. Emma was quiet, then said, Talk to Mrs. Halverson. She worked there years ago. She knows the stories. Sophie hung up, her mind racing. Mrs. Halverson was a local, a retired cashier who lived in a trailer near town. Sophie didn't go home after her shift. She drove to Mrs. Halverson's trailer, finding the old woman sipping tea in a cluttered living room. Mrs. Halverson's eyes narrowed when Sophie mentioned the footprints. You saw them, didn't you? She said, her voice low. The ones that don't leave. Sophie showed her the notebook, and Mrs. Halverson sighed. Back in '89, a girl named Clara went missing from North Star. Stranded motorist, caught in a blizzard. They found her car at Pump 2, buried in snow, but she was gone. Footprints led from the car to the station, but none went out. They never found her. Sophie's blood ran cold. What happened to her? Mrs. Halverson's eyes darted to the window. Some say she froze in the storm. Others say the station took her. After that, those footprints started showing up, always in the snow, always at night. She handed Sophie a faded photo, Clara, a young woman with pale eyes, her face hauntingly familiar. That night, Sophie brought a crowbar, determined to end whatever was haunting the station. She taped Clara's photo next to the cross, her hands shaking. The air felt colder. The coolers hum a low chant that echoed the sigh from the footage. At 2:13 the footprints appeared, now circling the counter, closer, the snow and mud leaving wet streaks on the floor. Sophie ran outside, the crowbar raised, the blizzard swirling around her. The footprints led to pump 2, stopping at the base, where the snow was disturbed, as if something had been dug up. She knelt, her flashlight beam catching a glint of locket, half buried, engraved with C.M. Clara Mitchell. A figure appeared in the snow, translucent, her eyes hollow, her hands reaching out. "Find me," she whispered, her voice echoing through the wind. Sophie screamed, dropping the locket. The figure lunged, its icy fingers brushing her face, leaving a stinging chill. The footprints multiplied, circling her, the snow piling higher as the blizzard roared. Sophie ran inside, slamming the door, but the footprints followed, forming on the floor, the whisper louder. "Find me." The lights flickered, the monitor showing static, and the locket appeared on the counter, its chain coiled like a snake. Sophie called the sheriff, babbling about the footprints, the locket, the figure. They arrived at dawn. Digging under pump 2, they found bones, human, female, buried decades ago. The locket matched Clara's description. The case was reopened, but Sophie didn't stay. She quit that morning, leaving a note. Asterisk, the station's haunted. I'm out. Asterisk. She moved to Minneapolis, taking a job at a bakery, day shifts only, but the footprints followed. In winter, she'd see them faint tracks in the snow outside her apartment, leading to her door, never away. She kept Clara's photo, a reminder of the night she answered the call in the snow. The neon sign above the gas station flickered, casting a sickly green glow over the cracked asphalt lot. Marty's Fuel Stop. The name was barely legible anymore, the letters peeling like old skin. It was 11:47 p.m., and the world outside was a void of black, broken only by the occasional flash of headlights from a passing semi. Ellie Harper leaned against the counter, her elbows sinking into the worn formica, her eyes heavy from the monotony of the night shift. The air smelled of stale coffee and motor oil, and the hum of the cooler in the back was the only sound keeping her company. Ellie was 24, with dark circles under her eyes and a ponytail that had started to unravel hours ago. She'd taken the job at Marty's 3 months back, after dropping out of community college and needing something to keep her afloat. The gas station, perched on the edge of Highway 17 in rural Ohio, was a last resort place where dreams went to die, and the only customers were truckers, drifters, and the occasional lost soul. The night shift paid an extra $1 an hour, but it came with a price: the isolation, the silence, and the creeping feeling that something was always watching from just beyond the pumps. She glanced at the security monitor on the counter, a grainy black and white feed showing the 4 pumps outside. Empty, as usual. The clock ticked over to 11:50 p.m., 10 hours to go. Ellie sighed, flipping through a dog-eared copy of People magazine, the pages curling from the humidity. The bell above the door hadn't chimed in hours, and she was starting to wonder if she'd make it through another shift without losing her mind. Then, a flicker on the monitor caught her eye. Pump 2. A car had pulled up an old sedan, its paint chipped and faded, the kind of vehicle you'd expect to see abandoned in a junkyard. Ellie straightened, her heart giving a small, involuntary lurch. She hadn't heard an engine or seen headlights sweep across the lot. The car was just there. The driver's side door opened, and a man stepped out. He wore a dark hooded jacket, the hood pulled low, obscuring his face. He moved with a slow, deliberate gait, like someone who had all the time in the world. Ellie watched as he grabbed the nozzle from pump 2 and began filling the tank. The meter on her register ticked up $3.47, $5.22, $7.89. She waited for him to come inside and pay, as most customers did. But he didn't. Instead, he hung the nozzle back on the pump, climbed into the sedan, and drove off. The car's taillights vanished into the darkness, swallowed by the night. Ellie frowned, checking the register. The total was $12.63, unpaid. She glanced at the monitor again, but the lot was empty, the pump standing alone under the flickering canopy. "Great," she muttered, scribbling a note from Marty, the owner. Asterisk customer at pump 2. 11:52 p.m. Didn't pay. $12.63. Asterisk Marty would probably dock her pay for this, even though there was nothing she could do. She leaned back, rubbing her temples. The cooler's hum seemed louder now, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The next night, Ellie clocked in with a knot in her stomach. She hadn't slept well. Dreams of shadowed figures and empty highways had kept her tossing, and the memory of the unpaid customer gnawed at her. Marty hadn't been happy about the note, grumbling about kids these days and keeping an eye on the lot, as if she could chase down a car in the middle of nowhere. It was 1:15 a.m. It happened again. The monitor flickered, and there was the sedan, same as before, at pump 2. Ellie's breath caught. She hadn't seen it pull in, hadn't heard a sound. The same hooded man stepped out, his movements eerily identical to the previous night. He filled the tank $12.63, exactly the same amount. Ellie grabbed the phone, ready to call Marty or even the cops, but something stopped her. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. She watched the man hang up the nozzle and climb back into the car. This time, she ran to the door, pushing it open just as the sedan's taillights disappeared down the highway. The lot was silent, the air cold and sharp. She checked the pump. The nozzle was still warm, as if it had just been used. But the pavement was dry, no tire marks, no oil stains, nothing. Back inside, Ellie rewound the security footage. Her hands trembled as she watched the grainy feed. The sedan appeared out of nowhere, like a glitch in the tape. The man pumped gas, got in, and drove off. But then something made her freeze. As the car pulled away, the man's head turned, and for a split second, he looked directly at the camera. His face was still hidden by the hood, but the angle was unnatural, like he knew exactly where the lens was. Ellie's mouth went dry. She played the footage again, pausing on that frame. The hood cast a shadow, but she could just make out the glint of eyes, too bright, too sharp, like an animal caught in headlights. She shut off the monitor, her heart pounding. The cooler's hum filled the silence, steady and relentless. By the third night, Ellie was dreading her shift. She'd told her friend Jess about the customer, but Jess had laughed it off, saying Ellie was just sleep-deprived. Gas stations are creepy, Elle. You're imagining things. But Ellie wasn't so sure. She'd started noticing little things, the way the cooler's hum seemed to form words if she listened too long, the way the neon sign flickered in patterns that felt deliberate. She brought a flashlight and a pocket knife, just in case. At 2:03 a.m., the sedan appeared again. Ellie was ready this time. She locked the cash register and stood by the door, watching the man at pump 2. The meter ticked up $12.63, always the same. He didn't look at the station, didn't acknowledge her. But when he hung up the nozzle, something fell from his pocket and landed on the pavement. A small, crumpled piece of paper. Ellie waited until the car was gone before stepping outside. The air was frigid, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones. She shone her flashlight on the ground and picked up the paper. It was a receipt, faded and brittle, like it had been sitting in the sun for years. The print was barely legible. Marty's fuel stop, $12.63, March 14th, 1997. Below the total in smudged ink was a name, Ellie Harper. Her stomach dropped. She stumbled back inside, locking the door behind her. The receipt trembled in her hand. It wasn't possible. She hadn't even been born in 1997. Her mind raced. Maybe it was a coincidence. A different Ellie Harper. But the handwriting was unmistakable. The same loopy scrawl she used herself. She checked the security footage again. The man's head turned toward the camera, just like before, but this time the hood slipped back slightly. The face underneath wasn't human. It was pale, almost translucent, with hollow sockets where eyes should have been. The mouth was a thin, lipless slash, stretched into a mockery of a smile. Ellie screamed, dropping the receipt. The monitor flickered, and the image was gone. Ellie didn't sleep that day. She sat in her apartment, the receipt on her kitchen table, staring at it like it might move. She called Marty, asking if he'd ever known another Ellie Harper. He grunted, saying he'd owned the station since the 80s and never met anyone with that name before her. But he sounded uneasy, like he was holding something back. Desperate for answers, Ellie drove to the local library, digging through old newspapers on microfiche. After hours of searching, she found it. A small article from March 15th, 1997. Tragic accident at Marty's fuel stop. A customer, unnamed, had been killed in a hit-and-run in the station's lot. The driver, described as wearing a hooded jacket, had fled the scene. The article mentioned a receipt found at the pump, but no details about it. The station had closed for a week, and Marty had never spoken of it again. Ellie's hands shook as she printed the article. The date on the receipt, March 14th, 1997, was the night before the accident. She called Jess, begging her to cover the shift, but Jess was out of town. Ellie had no choice. She had to go back. The gas station felt different that night, like the air itself was holding its breath. Ellie kept the lights on full, the radio blaring to drown out the cooler's hum. She taped the receipt to the counter, as if keeping it in sight would protect her. The clock ticked toward 2 and her heart raced with every passing minute. At 2:03 a.m., the monitor flickered. The sedan was there, at pump 2. The man stepped out, his movements slower, more deliberate. Ellie gripped her pocket knife, her knuckles white. The meter ticked up $12.63, but this time, he didn't get back in the car. He turned and walked toward the station. The bell above the door didn't chime, but the door swung open. The man stood in the threshold, his hood low, his hands hidden in his pockets. The air grew colder, the lights dimming until the station was bathed in a sickly green glow. Ellie's breath came in shallow gasps. "What do you want?" she whispered. The man didn't speak. He stepped forward, leaving no sound, no shadow. The receipt on the counter began to tremble, the ink glowing faintly. Ellie's name pulsed like a heartbeat. She backed against the cooler, the hum now a deafening roar in her ears. The man's head tilted, and the hood fell back. His face was worse than the footage. It was a void, a swirling mass of darkness where features should have been, except for those glinting eyes now fixed on her. The mouth opened, and a voice like static filled the room. "You didn't pay." Ellie screamed, slashing wildly with the knife. The blade passed through him, and he vanished. The lights snapped back on, the cooler's hum returning to normal. The receipt was gone. Ellie collapsed, sobbing, her mind unraveling. Ellie quit the next morning. She didn't tell Marty why, just left her keys on the counter and drove away. She moved to a new town, got a job at a diner, and tried to forget. But the receipt appeared in her car one day, crumpled and faded, her name still scrawled across it. She burned it, but the smell of gasoline lingered in her apartment. Sometimes, late at night, she'd wake to the sound of a car engine outside her window. She never looked. She knew what she'd see: a sedan, parked under a streetlight, with a hooded figure staring up at her. The Bluegrass Fuel Mart stood alone on a stretch of Highway 31 in rural Kentucky, surrounded by rolling hills and patches of dense woods. Its faded sign flickered, casting a pale blue glow over the cracked asphalt lot, where weeds pushed through the seams. At 1:03 a.m., the station was a lonely outpost, its fluorescent lights buzzing faintly, the only sign of life in a world swallowed by darkness. Ava Reynolds leaned against the counter, her arms crossed, her eyes heavy from the monotony of the night shift. At 29, Ava was a single mother with tired eyes and a braid that hung loose down her back. She'd taken the job at Bluegrass 6 months ago, after her divorce left her scrambling to support her daughter, Lily. The night shift was grueling 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., restocking shelves, ringing up truckers, and cleaning the perpetually sticky floor, but it paid the bills, and the hours let her be home when Lily woke up. The security monitor sat to her right, its grainy feed showing the 3 pumps outside, bathed in the dim glow of the canopy lights. The walk-in cooler in the back hummed, a low, steady drone that filled the silence when the radio was off. Ava had grown used to it, though sometimes it seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat she couldn't quite place. She glanced at the clock. 1:05 a.m. another long night ahead. Then, a new sound broke through a faint hum, not from the cooler, but inside it, like a chant carried on the wind. Ava froze, her hand pausing on the energy drink she was restocking. The hum was rhythmic, almost melodic, rising and falling in a pattern that felt deliberate. She turned toward the cooler door, its metal surface scuffed and dented, the handle cold under the fluorescent lights. She opened the door, the blast of cold air hitting her face. The hum stopped, replaced by the usual drone of the compressor. Inside, the cooler was packed with soda cans and milk jugs, the shelves coated in a thin layer of frost. Nothing seemed out of place, but the air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Ava shone her flashlight across the shelves, half expecting to see something: a rat, a leak, anything to explain the sound. Nothing. She closed the door, her heart beating faster than it should. The hum started again, fainter now, coming from deep within the cooler. Ava checked the security monitor, hoping for a distraction, but the lot was empty. She jotted a note in the logbook. *105 a May. Weird humming cooler, checked. Nothing there. **. She told herself it was the compressor acting up, but the sound lingered in her mind, like a song she couldn't forget. The next night, Ava came to work with a knot in her stomach. She hadn't slept well, her dreams filled with the hum, a low, chanting sound that seemed to call her name. She'd told her friend Sarah, who worked the day shift, about it, but Sarah had laughed it off. "Old coolers make all kinds of noises, Ava. You're just tired." But Ava wasn't convinced. The hum wasn't mechanical. It was alive. She brought a small flashlight and a notebook, determined to document anything strange. The station felt different tonight, the air thicker, the cooler's hum louder, almost insistent. At 1:05 Omid, it happened again. The chant-like hum rose from the cooler, clearer this time, a low murmur that formed words she couldn't quite make out. Ava's skin prickled as she approached the door, her flashlight beam trembling. She opened the cooler, the cold air sharp against her face. The hum stopped, but the frost on the shelves had formed strange patterns, swirls, and lines that looked like writing, though not in any language she recognized. She touched the frost, her fingers stinging, and the patterns seemed to shift, curling inward like a spiral. Ava slammed the door shut, her breath ragged. Back at the counter, she checked the security footage, hoping the cameras caught something inside the cooler. The feed showed the lot, empty and still, but the audio picked up the hum of faint, chanting sound that sent chills down her spine. She played it again, leaning closer to the speaker. The words were clearer now. Stay with me. Ava turned off the monitor, her hands shaking. The cooler's hum returned to normal, but the air felt colder, the station smaller, like the walls were closing in. She wrote in her notebook, *105 AM, hum in cooler, sounds like words. Stay with me. Frost patterns on shelves. She taped a photo of Lily to the counter, a reminder of why she endured this job, and tried to focus on restocking. By the third night, Ava was fraying. She hadn't told Sarah about the hum again, afraid of sounding unhinged. She'd spent the day searching online for anything about bluegrass fuel mart, but found only a few reviews mentioning the creepy vibe of the place. Her dreams were worse now, dark, cold spaces filled with the hum, and a voice whispering her name. She brought a pocket knife and a small Bible, tucking them under the counter for comfort. At 105 A, the hum returned, louder, more insistent. The words were unmistakable. Stay with me. Don't leave. Ava's heart pounded as she approached the cooler, the flashlight beam cutting through the din station. She opened the door, and the hum stopped, but the frost patterns were back deeper, more intricate, forming a face with hollow eyes and a gaping mouth. Ava gasped, stepping back, and the door slammed shut on its own. She ran to the counter, checking the footage. The audio captured the hum, now a chorus of voices, all whispering, "Stay with me." The camera inside the cooler showed nothing but shelves, but for a single frame, the frost patterns moved, forming the face she'd seen. Ava's stomach churned. She called Sarah, her voice trembling. "Something's wrong with the cooler. It's talking." Sarah was quiet for a moment, then said, "Talk to old man Tucker. He worked here years ago. He knows things." Ava hung up, her mind racing. Tucker was a local, a grizzled retiree who hung out at the diner down the road. She resolved to find him after her shift. Ava didn't go home after her shift. She drove to the diner, finding Tucker at a corner booth, nursing a coffee. His face was lined, his eyes cloudy, but they sharpened when she mentioned the cooler. "You heard it, didn't you?" he said, his voice low. "The hum," Ava nodded, showing him her notebook. Tucker sighed, leaning back. Back in '92, a kid named Jenny worked the night shift, got locked in that cooler one night, froze to death before anyone found her. They said it was an accident, but I never believed it. She was careful, and after she died, that cooler started acting strange, humming, like it was singing to itself. Ava's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, singing?" Tucker's eyes darted to the window, toward the station, like it was trying to keep her there. "Jenny was my niece. She used to say the cooler felt alive, like it wanted her to stay." He handed Ava a faded photo. Jenny, a young woman with a shy smile, her face eerily similar to the frost patterns. That night, Ava brought a crowbar, determined to face whatever was in the cooler. She taped Jenny's photo next to Lily's, her hands shaking. The station felt darker, the hum louder, like a chorus waiting to erupt. At 105 Amaben, the hum began, now a scream. "Stay with me. Don't leave me." Ava gripped the crowbar and opened the cooler door. The frost patterns were everywhere, covering the walls, the floor, forming a dozen faces, all screaming. The air was freezing, her breath fogging, but the temperature gauge read 40 degrees Fahrenheit, impossibly warm for a cooler. Ava swung the crowbar, shattering a shelf, and the hum became a wail, shaking the walls. A figure appeared in the frost, a woman, translucent, her eyes hollow, her hands reaching out. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice echoing in Ava's head. Ava screamed, dropping the crowbar. The figure lunged, its icy fingers brushing her arm, leaving a burn that seared through her jacket. She ran, slamming the cooler door, but the hum followed, vibrating through the station. The lights flickered, the monitor showing static, and the frost patterns appeared on the counter, creeping toward Lily's photo. Ava grabbed the photo and ran outside, the cold night air a relief. The hum stopped, but the station's lights dimmed, the cooler door creaking open behind her. She drove home, locking her apartment door, clutching Lily as she slept. The next day she quit, leaving a note for her boss. * coolers haunted. I'm done. She moved to Lexington, taking a job at a grocery store, day shifts only. But the hum followed. In quiet moments, she'd hear it a faint chant, whispering her name. Sometimes she'd wake to find frost on her windows, forming patterns that looked like Jenny's face. She never returned to Bluegrass, but she kept Jenny's photo, a reminder of the voice that refused to let go. The Horizon fuel stop sat on a desolate stretch of Highway 30 in rural Nebraska, where the plains stretched endlessly under a sky heavy with stars. Its neon sign flickered, casting a pale green glow over the cracked asphalt lot, where the wind carried whispers of dust and grass. At 332A, the station was a lonely outpost, its fluorescent lights buzzing faintly, a solitary beacon in the vast emptiness. Riley Morgan stood behind the counter, her hands busy wiping down the register, her eyes scanning the empty lot through the smudged glass doors. At 23, Riley was a slight woman with short auburn hair and a nervous habit of chewing her lip. She'd taken the night shift job 2 months ago, after moving to the small town of Elmwood to escape a toxic relationship. The work was monotonous, ringing up snacks, refilling the coffee pot, and waiting for the rare late-night traveler, but it gave her a fresh start, even if the isolation made her jump at every shadow. The security monitor sat on the counter, its grainy feed showing the 4 pumps outside, bathed in the dim glow of the canopy lights. The cooler hummed in the back, a steady drone that blended with the wind's low moan. Riley glanced at the clock. 3:35 a.m., 1 hour until closing. Then, the bell above the door chimed, sharp and sudden. Riley's head snapped up as a man entered, a tall figure in a gray coat, his face obscured by a low baseball cap. He moved slowly, his steps deliberate, and stopped in the middle of the store, staring at her. His eyes were hidden in shadow, but Riley felt their weight, unblinking and intense. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice unsteady. The man didn't respond. He stood motionless, his head tilted slightly, his gaze fixed on her. Riley's skin prickled. She glanced at the monitor. Pump 4 was empty. No car in sight. The man didn't browse, didn't speak, just stared. After a long minute, he turned and left, the bell chiming as the door swung shut. Riley exhaled, her heart racing, and checked the footage. The man appeared at 3:35 standing in the store, staring directly at the camera, then leaving. No car, no trace. She wrote in the logbook, *335, a man in gray coat, stared, didn't buy anything. Left. *. She told herself he was just a drifter, maybe drunk, but his stare lingered in her mind, cold and unrelenting, like a predator sizing her up. The next night, Riley came to work with a knot in her stomach. She hadn't slept well, her dreams filled with a faceless man staring through endless darkness. She told her coworker Nate about the customer, but he'd laughed it off. "Creeps come through all the time, Riley. Don't let it get to you." But his eyes darted to the door, and Riley knew he felt it too, the station's eerie pull. She brought a flashlight and a notebook, determined to keep track of anything strange. The lot was empty, the wind stronger tonight, rattling the sign. At 3:35 the bell chimed. Riley's heart stopped as the man entered, same gray coat, same cap, same unblinking stare. He stood closer this time, near the counter, his eyes hidden but piercing. "What do you want?" Riley asked, her voice trembling. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stared, The air grew colder. The coolers hung louder, almost rhythmic like a heartbeat. Riley glanced at the monitor. Pump 4 was empty, no car. After a minute, he turned and left, the bell chiming. She locked the door behind him, her hands shaking, and checked the footage. The man appeared at 3:35 a.m., closer to the counter, his head tilted toward the camera, eyes glinting faintly under the cap. Then he was gone, no trace outside. Riley wrote in her notebook, *3:35 a.m. Man in gray coat, closer, stared, no car, left. The cooler's hum seemed to echo his presence, and she turned up the radio, trying to drown it out. But her eyes kept darting to the door, expecting him to return. By the third night, Riley was unraveling. She hadn't told anyone else about the man, afraid they'd think she was crazy. She'd spent the day searching online for anything about Horizon Fuel Stop, finding only a few reviews mentioning the weird vibe at night. Her dreams were worse now. A man staring from the shadows, his eyes glowing, his presence suffocating. She brought a pocket knife and a small locket, a gift from her mother, taping it to the counter for comfort. At 3:35 a.m., the bell chimed. The man was back, closer still, standing inches from the counter. His stare was unbearable, his eyes glinting under the cap, unblinking, like a predator's. Riley gripped the pocket knife under the counter, her voice shaking. "Why are you here?" The man didn't answer, but as he turned to leave, he whispered, "Riley." Her name, soft and cold, like a breath of frost. She screamed, locking the door as he left. The footage showed him at 3:35 a.m., standing at the counter, his lips moving as he said her name, then vanishing. The audio captured the whisper, clear and chilling. "Riley." She wrote in her notebook, 3:35 a.m., man in gray coat, said my name, no car, left. The cooler's hum was louder, almost a voice, echoing her name in rhythm. Riley didn't sleep that day. The whisper haunted her, its familiarity terrifying. She called Nate, begging him to cover her shift, but he was out of town. She had no choice. She had to go back. Riley didn't go home after her shift. She drove to the Elwood Library, her notebook clutched tightly, her eyes bloodshot. She needed answers. The man wasn't human. He knew her name, appeared without a trace. She spent hours searching old newspapers, finding a 1991 article, "Violent Incident at Horizon Fuel Stop." A cashier, Lavra Hayes, had been attacked during the night shift. The assailant, a tall man in a gray coat, fleeing into the night. Lavra survived, but left town, traumatized. The suspect was never caught, last seen near Pump 4. Riley's stomach churned. She confronted her boss, Diane, before her next shift. Diane, a weary woman in her 50s, sighed heavily. "That was a long time ago, Riley. Don't dig it up." But her hands shook as she spoke, and Riley knew she was hiding something. That night, Riley brought a tire iron, taping Laura's article next to the locket. The station felt darker, the air thick with the scent of dust and something sour, like fear. At 3:35 a.m., the bell chimed. The man was there, behind the counter, inches from her. His eyes glowed, unblinking, his face a void under the cap. "Riley," he whispered, his voice echoing through the cooler, the lights, the walls. Riley screamed, swinging the tire iron, but it passed through him, clanging against the counter. The man leaned closer, his icy breath brushing her face, whispering, "Stay with me." She blinked, and he was gone, but the locket was blackened, the article torn. The footage showed him behind the counter, his eyes locked on the camera, then vanishing. The whisper echoed, "Stay with me, Riley." Riley called the sheriff, babbling about the man, the whisper. They found nothing, no trace, no damage. She quit that morning, leaving a note. *, the station's haunted. I'm done. *, she moved to Lincoln. taking a job at a bookstore, A shifts only. But the stare followed. In quiet moments, she'd feel it eyes watching from shadows, her name whispered in the dark. Sometimes she'd wake to find the locket on her nightstand, though she'd thrown it away. She never returned to Horizon, but she heard from Nate that the man still appeared at 335A, staring, waiting, his whisper haunting the empty lot. The Cumberland fuel stop sat on a lonely stretch of Highway 70 in rural Tennessee, where the road wound through hills cloaked in mist and shadow. Its faded sign flickered, casting a weak amber glow over the cracked asphalt lot, where an ancient payphone stood like a relic from another era. At 3:57 a.m., the station was a silent outpost, its fluorescent lights buzzing faintly, the only beacon in a world swallowed by darkness. Eli Dawson leaned against the counter, his boots scuffing the worn linoleum, his eyes heavy from the monotony of the night shift. At 27, Eli was a broad-shouldered man with a scruffy beard and a quiet demeanor, a former mechanic who'd taken the job at Cumberland after his garage shut down. The night shift was a grind restocking snacks, mopping the floor, and dealing with the occasional trucker, but it paid enough to keep his small apartment and his old Chevy running. The isolation was the hardest part, the way the station felt cut off from the world, like a ship adrift in a sea of night. The security monitor sat on the counter, its grainy feed showing the 3 pumps outside, bathed in the dim glow of the canopy lights. The payphone stood just beyond pump 3, its metal casing rusted, the receiver dangling slightly off the hook. The cooler hummed in the back, a steady drone that blended with the distant chirping of crickets. Eli glanced at the clock. 4 a.m., 2 hours to go. Then a sharp ring pierced the silence. Eli's head snapped up, his heart lurching. The sound came from the payphone outside, its bell echoing across the lot. He frowned, checking the monitor. The lot was empty, no cars, no people. The payphone rang again, insistent, the sound cutting through the night like a cry for help. Eli grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside, the cool air sharp with the scent of gasoline and damp earth. The payphone rang a third time as he approached, the receiver glinting in the canopy's light. He hesitated, then picked it up, pressing it to his ear. Static crackled, loud and jagged, followed by faint breathing, slow and deliberate. "Hello?" Eli said, his voice unsteady. No response, just the breathing, then silence. The line went dead. He hung up, his pulse racing, and checked the lot. Nothing. The pumps were still, the highway empty. Back inside, he jotted a note in the logbook. Asterisk 4 a.m., payphone rang, no one online, just static and breathing. Asterisk. He figured it was a prank, maybe kids messing around, but the breathing lingered in his mind, heavy and unnatural, like it was watching him through the phone. The next night, Eli came to work with a knot in his stomach. He hadn't slept well, his dreams filled with the sound of a ringing phone and the echo of breathing in his ear. He'd told his friend Caleb, a bartender in town, about the call, but Caleb had laughed it off. Old payphones do weird stuff, man. Probably just a crossed wire, but Eli wasn't so sure. The station felt different now, the air heavier, the payphone's presence looming like a shadow. He brought a flashlight and a notebook, determined to keep track of anything strange. The monitor showed the lot, empty except for the payphone, its receiver now properly hung up. At 4 a meg, the phone rang again, the sound sharper, more urgent. Eli's heart skipped as he checked the monitor still empty. He stepped outside, the flashlight beam trembling in his hand, and picked up the receiver. Static surged, louder this time, and the breathing was clearer, almost desperate. Then a voice, faint, distorted, like it was coming from underwater. "Help me," it whispered. "I'm lost." Eli's breath caught. "Who is this? Where are you?" he asked, his voice shaking. The static grew, drowning out the voice, and the line went dead. Back inside, Eli rewound the security footage. The lot was empty at 4, but the audio picked up the ringing and the voice, clear and haunting. "Help me. I'm lost." He played it again, his skin prickling. The voice was familiar, though he couldn't place why. He wrote in his notebook, *4A mad. Payphone rang. Voice said, "Help me. I'm lost." No one in lot got asterisk. The cooler's hum seemed louder now, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing the phone's ring. Eli didn't sleep that day. The voice haunted him, its desperation clawing at his mind. He checked the payphone before his next shift, finding it disconnected, the wires cut years ago. Yet it had rung, and someone or something had spoken. By the third night, Eli was unraveling. He hadn't told anyone else about the calls, afraid they'd think he was crazy. He'd spent the day searching online for anything about Cumberland Fuel Stop, but found only a few reviews mentioning the creepy old payphone. His dreams were worse now, a ringing phone in a dark void, the breathing growing louder, closer. He brought a pocket knife and a small wooden cross, a gift from his mother, taping it to the counter for protection. At 4 a.m, the payphone rang, the sound piercing the silence like a scream. Eli checked the monitor empty. He stepped outside, his flashlight beam cutting through the mist. The receiver was off the hook, dangling, swinging slightly as if someone had just dropped it. He picked it up, his hands trembling, and heard static, then the voice, his own voice, distorted, pleading. "Help me, Eli," it said. "I'm lost." "I'm you." Eli dropped the receiver, stumbling back. The phone kept ringing, even off the hook, the sound echoing in his head. He ran inside, locking the door, his heart pounding. The footage showed the lot empty, but the audio captured his voice, looping. "Help me, Eli. I'm lost." He turned off the monitor, but the ringing continued, coming from the cooler now, the hum twisting into a distorted echo of his own voice. Eli wrote in his notebook, *48A. Payphone rang. My voice said, "Help me, Eli." Phone disconnected. He didn't sleep that day, the voice replaying in his mind, his own but not his own, like a shadow of himself, trapped somewhere else. Eli didn't go home after his shift. He drove to the town library, his notebook clutched tightly, his eyes bloodshot. He needed answers. The payphone wasn't just broken, it was something else, something alive. He spent hours searching old newspapers, finding a 1985 article, "Tragic Disappearance at Cumberland Fuel Stop." A trucker, Thomas Reed, had vanished after stopping at the station late at night. His truck was found abandoned near the payphone, the receiver off the hook, a call still active, but no one on the line. Locals whispered about a drifter seen that night, but no one was ever found. Eli's stomach churned. He confronted his boss, Wanda, before his next shift. Wanda, a chain-smoking woman in her 60s, paled at the mention of Thomas. "Don't mess with that phone, Eli," she said, her voice low. "It's bad luck." But her eyes betrayed fear, and Eli knew she was hiding something. That night, Eli brought a hammer, determined to destroy the payphone. He taped Thomas's article next to the cross, his hands shaking. The station felt darker, the air thick with the scent of ozone and decay. At 4 a.m, the phone rang, the sound a wail that shook the windows. Eli ran outside, hammer raised, but stopped. The receiver was off the hook, and a figure stood in the mist, a man, translucent, his face a mirror of Eli's, his eyes hollow. "Help me," the figure whispered, its voice coming through the phone in the cooler, echoing in Eli's head. "I'm you." Eli swung the hammer, smashing the payphone, but the ringing didn't stop. The figure lunged, its icy breath brushing his face, and the world went black. Eli woke inside the station, sprawled on the floor, the hammer beside him. The clock read 4:02 a.m. The payphone was intact, the receiver hung up. But the footage showed nothing. No figure, no ringing, just static. The cooler's hum was louder, a chorus of voices now, all his own pleading. "Help me, Eli." The cross on the counter was cracked, the article torn to shreds. Eli called the sheriff, babbling about the phone, the figure, his own voice. They found nothing, no evidence, no damage to the payphone. Eli quit that morning, leaving a note. Asterisk, the phone is cursed. Undone. Asterisk, he moved to Nashville, taking a job at a warehouse, day shifts only. But the ringing followed. In quiet moments, he'd hear a faint bell, his voice whispering through static. Sometimes he'd wake to find his phone off the hook, the screen glowing with an unknown number. He never returned to Cumberland, but he heard from Caleb that the payphone still rang at 4 a.m., even after it was removed, its echo haunting the empty lot. The Pine Hollow fuel stop crouched at the edge of a dense forest, where Highway 42 cut through the Indiana wilderness like a scar. Its faded sign flickered, the letters barely legible under layers of grime, casting a weak yellow glow over the cracked asphalt lot. At 12:17 a, the station was a solitary island in a sea of darkness, surrounded by towering pines that seemed to lean inward, watching. The air smelled of damp earth and gasoline, and the only sound was the faint rustle of leaves in the distance. Lucas Bennett stood behind the counter, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his worn hoodie, his eyes scanning the empty lot through the smudged glass doors. At 22, Lucas was a wiry kid with a buzz cut and a nervous energy that never quite settled. He'd taken the night shift job 3 months ago, after moving back to Pine Hollow to save money for trade school. The gas station was a last resort remote, rundown, and frequented only by truckers and locals who knew better than to linger. The night shift paid $1 more per hour, but it came with a cost. The crushing isolation, the endless silence, and the feeling that the forest was always listening. The security monitor sat on the counter, its grainy feed showing the 3 pumps outside, bathed in the dim glow of the canopy lights. The radio was off. Lucas preferred the quiet, even if it made his skin crawl. The cooler in the back hummed, a low drone that sometimes seemed to mimic the rhythm of his breathing. He glanced at the clock. 12:20 a.m., another 7 hours to go. Then a flicker on the monitor caught his eye. Pump 2. A truck had pulled up an old pickup, its body rusted and dented, the kind of vehicle that looked like it hadn't moved since the 80s. Lucas frowned, leaning closer to the screen. He hadn't heard an engine, hadn't seen headlights sweep across the lot. The truck was just there. The driver's side door didn't open. The figure inside sat motionless, a dark silhouette against the faint glow of the dashboard. Lucas waited, expecting the driver to step out and pump gas or come inside for a coffee. But the truck just sat there, idling silently, its outline blurred on the grainy feed. He checked the register, no activity on pump 2. The truck wasn't pumping gas. After 5 minutes, the truck pulled away, its taillights vanishing into the darkness of the highway. Lucas exhaled, his shoulders relaxing. "Weird," he muttered, jotting a note in the logbook. Asterisk pickup at pump 2, 12:20 No purchase. Left. Asterisk. He figured it was a tired trucker, maybe lost, maybe just resting. But something about the truck's stillness gnawed at him, like a memory he couldn't place. The next night, Lucas came to work with a knot in his stomach. He hadn't slept well, his dreams filled with the image of the truck, its silhouette looming in a fog-choked forest. He told himself it was nothing, just a late-night driver, a glitch in his tired brain. But the station felt different now, the air heavier, the pines outside seeming to crowd closer. He brought a flashlight and a pocket radio, hoping music would keep him grounded. The monitor was on, the pumps empty under the flickering canopy lights. At 12:20 a.m., the screen flickered, and there it was, the same rusted pickup, parked at pump 2. Lucas's heart lurched. No headlights, no engine noise. Just the truck, appearing like a ghost. He leaned closer to the monitor, his breath fogging the screen. The driver was there again, a dark shape, unmoving. Lucas squinted, trying to make out details, but the feed was too grainy. The figure's head was tilted slightly, as if staring straight ahead. He checked the register, still no activity. The truck wasn't pumping gas, wasn't doing anything. Lucas grabbed the flashlight and stepped outside, the cold air biting his face. The lot was silent, the pines swaying faintly in the distance. He shone the light at pump 2, expecting to see the truck's rusted frame. Nothing. The lot was empty, the pavement dry, no tire marks. He checked the pump untouched, the nozzle cold in its cradle. Back inside, he rewound the footage. His hands shook as he watched the truck appear at 12:20 a.m., the driver sitting still, then pulling away at 12:25 a.m., but there was something new. As the truck moved, the driver's head turned, looking directly at the camera. The face was hidden in shadow, but the eyes glinted too bright, too sharp, like a predator caught in the light. Lucas froze, his mouth dry. The footage looped, and the truck vanished, leaving the lot empty. He didn't tell anyone. His older sister, Mia, would call him paranoid, and his boss, Carl, would laugh it off. But Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that the truck wasn't just a truck. It was watching him. By the third night, Lucas was on edge. He hadn't slept properly, his nights haunted by dreams of the truck driving in circles, its headlights cutting through an endless forest. He'd started noticing things, the way the cooler's hum seemed to mimic the truck's idling engine, the way the canopy lights flickered in a pattern that felt deliberate. He brought a notebook, scribbling details. 12:20 a. Rusted pickup at pump 2, no purchase, driver stares at camera, leaves at 12:25. He taped a small cross, a gift from Mia, to the counter, though he wasn't sure he believed in it. At 12:20 a.m., the monitor flickered. The truck was back, parked at pump 2. Lucas's heart pounded, but he stayed at the counter, watching the screen. The driver sat still, head tilted, eyes glinting in the feed. Lucas pressed the intercom button, his voice shaking. "Hey, you need help out there?" No response, just the faint hum of the cooler. He rewound the footage, his fingers clumsy. The truck appeared out of nowhere, like a glitch in the tape. It sat for 5 minutes, the driver staring, then drove off. But this time, Lucas noticed something new. The footage didn't end. The truck reappeared at the edge of the lot, looping back to pump 2, then driving off again, over and over, an endless cycle. He paused the tape, his stomach churning. The driver's eyes were locked on the camera in every frame, unblinking, unnatural. Lucas turned off the monitor, his hands trembling. The cooler's hum grew louder, almost rhythmic, like an engine idling. He grabbed the flashlight and stepped outside, needing to prove the lot was empty. The air was thick, the pines looming closer, their branches scratching in the wind. He shone the light at pump 2, half expecting the truck to appear. Nothing. But as he turned back, he saw a faint tire mark in the dirt at the lot's edge, leading into the forest. Lucas didn't go home after his shift. He drove to the Pine Hollow Library, a small brick building with outdated computers and stacks of yellowed newspapers. He needed answers. The truck wasn't just a hallucination. It was too consistent, too real. He spent hours searching, his eyes burning from lack of sleep, until he found it. A 1987 article, Fatal Crash Near Pine Hollow Fuel Stop. A trucker, Samuel Haz, had died when his pickup veered off Highway 42 and crashed into the forest. The article described the truck rusted, blue with a dented fender. Witnesses reported seeing it parked at the gas station earlier that night, though no one saw the driver leave. Lucas's blood ran cold. He printed the article and drove to the station, confronting Carl before his shift. Carl, A heavy-set man with a permanent cigarette dangling from his lips shrugged it off. "Old stories, kid. Don't let it mess with your head." But his eyes darted to the forest, and Lucas knew he was hiding something. That night, Lucas brought a tire iron, stashing it under the counter. He taped the article next to the cross, his hands shaking. The station felt alive now, the air heavy with the scent of pine and gasoline. He watched the clock, dreading 12:20 eerie. At 12:20 mf, a monitor flickered. The truck was there. At pump 2, the driver's silhouette darker, sharper. Lucas gripped the tire iron, his heart racing. The footage looped again, the truck driving off and reappearing. The Prairie Fuel stop sat on a lonesome stretch of Route 66 in rural Oklahoma, where the flat plains stretched endlessly under a starless sky. Its faded sign flickered, casting a dim orange glow over the dusty lot, where tumbleweeds rolled in the wind. At 1:47 a.m., the station was a solitary beacon, its fluorescent lights buzzing faintly, the only light for miles in the desolate landscape. Jasper Cole leaned against the counter, his fingers drumming on the worn wood, his eyes scanning the empty lot through the smudged glass doors. At 24, Jasper was a lanky man with a mop of sandy hair and a restless energy, a former farmhand who'd taken the night shift job after his family's farm went under. The work was tedious, restocking beef jerky, cleaning the coffee machine, and waiting for the rare trucker, but it kept him afloat, even if the isolation made his skin crawl. The security monitor sat on the counter, its grainy feed showing the 3 pumps outside, bathed in the weak glow of the canopy lights. An old radio, a relic from the 70s with a cracked dial, sat next to it, spitting static and snippets of country music. Jasper kept it on to fill the silence, though the signal was spotty, fading in and out with the wind. The cooler hummed in the back, a low drone that sometimes seemed to sync with the radio's static. He glanced at the clock. 1:50 a.m., another 5 hours to go. Then the radio crackled, louder than usual, the static surging into a jagged hiss. Jasper frowned, adjusting the dial, but the noise grew, forming a voice low, garbled, like someone speaking through a storm. "It hurts," the voice said, faint but clear. "The crash. It hurts." Jasper's hand froze, his heart lurching. He turned down the volume, but the voice persisted, cutting through the static. "Help me, I'm burning." He checked the monitor empty lot. No cars, no people. The pumps stood still, their nozzles untouched. Jasper turned off the radio, the silence sudden and heavy, but the cooler's hum seemed to carry the echo of the voice, faint and pleading. He stepped outside, the dry air thick with dust, and shone his flashlight across the lot. Nothing. The wind howled, carrying the faint scent of gasoline and something acrid, like smoke. Back inside, he rewound the security footage, hoping the cameras caught something. The lot was empty, but the audio feed from the counter picked up the voice, clear and haunting. "It hurts. The crash." Jasper wrote in the logbook. *150A, radio static, voice said, "It hurts. The crash." No one in lot. *. He told himself it was a crossed signal, maybe a CB radio from a passing trucker, but the voice lingered, its pain clawing at his mind. The next night, Jasper came to work with a knot in his stomach. He hadn't slept well, his dreams filled with static and the smell of burning rubber. He'd told his friend Riley, a mechanic in town, about the voice, but Riley had shrugged it off. "Old radios pick up all kinds of crap out here, Jasper. You're just tired." But Jasper wasn't convinced. The voice wasn't random, it was too clear, too personal. He brought a flashlight and a notebook, determined to document anything strange. The station felt different tonight, the air heavier, the radio static sharper, like it was waiting to speak. At 1:50 a.m., the radio crackled again, the static surging into a voice. Clearer now, a man's voice, hoarse and desperate. "The crash," it said. I'm burning. Help me, please. Jasper's pulse quickened. He turned off the radio, but the voice continued, echoing through the cooler's hum, now a low rhythmic chant. He stepped outside, the flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The lot was empty, but the air smelled stronger of smoke, like a fire had burned nearby. Jasper shone the light at pump 2, where the scent was strongest, and saw a faint scorch mark on the pavement, black and jagged, like a burn that hadn't been there before. He touched it, his fingers coming away clean, but the mark seemed to pulse under the light. Back inside, he checked the footage. The lot was empty, but the audio captured the voice, now describing details. The truck flipped. Fire everywhere. I can't get out. Jasper's skin prickled. He wrote in his notebook, *1:50 a.m. Radio voice said, the truck flipped. Fire. Scorch mark at pump 2. The cooler's hum grew louder, almost mimicking the voice's rhythm, and Jasper turned up the radio, trying to drown it out. By the third night, Jasper was fraying. He hadn't told anyone else about the voice, afraid they'd think he was losing it. He'd spent the day searching online for anything about Prairie Fuel Stop, finding only a few reviews mentioning the weird radio. His dreams were worse now. A burning truck, a man screaming, and static that swallowed the world. He brought a pocket knife and a small horseshoe, a gift from his father, taping it to the counter for luck. At 1:50 a.m., the radio crackled, the voice louder, more insistent. I'm burning, it screamed, his static a roar. You see me, help me. Jasper checked the monitor, his heart pounding, and froze. A figure stood at pump 2, a man, tall and thin, his clothes charred, his face obscured by shadow. The camera flickered, and he was gone, but the scorch mark was clearer, spreading across the pavement. Jasper ran outside, the flashlight trembling in his hand. The air was thick with smoke, though no fire was visible. The figure was there, real, standing at pump 2, its head tilted toward him. Its eyes glinted, red and glowing like embers in a fire. Jasper stumbled back, the voice echoing in his head. You see me. He ran inside, locking the door, and checked the footage. The figure appeared for a single frame, its charred form staring at the camera, then vanished. Jasper wrote in his notebook, *1:50 a.m. radio voice saw a man at pump 2, charred, eyes glowing. Scorch mark bigger. The cooler's hum was a scream now, the voice blending with it, pleading, help me. Jasper turned off the radio, but the voice persisted, coming from everywhere, the cooler, the lights, the wind outside. Jasper didn't go home after his shift. He drove to the town library, his notebook clutched tightly, his eyes bloodshot. He needed answers. The voice wasn't a signal. It was tied to the station, to the scorch mark. He spent hours searching old newspapers, finding a 1983 article, Fatal Crash at Prairie Fuel Stop. A trucker, Henry Walsh, had died when his rig caught fire at pump 2, the flames engulfing him before helped. The article described a man seen at the station earlier, his clothes charred, but no one could identify him. The station had closed for weeks, the pump rebuilt over the scorched ground. Jasper's stomach churned. He confronted his boss, Earl, before his next shift. Earl, a grizzled man in his 60s, paled at the mention of Henry. Don't stir that up, kid, he said, his voice low. Some things are better left buried. But his hands shook as he lit a cigarette, and Jasper knew he was hiding something. That night, Jasper brought a fire extinguisher, determined to face whatever was haunting the station. He taped Henry's article next to the horseshoe, his hands trembling. The air felt hotter, the smell of smoke stronger, the cooler's hum a low roar. At 1:50 a.m., the radio screamed, the voice a wail. I'm burning. You see me. Jasper ran outside, the extinguisher heavy in his arms, and saw the figure at pump 2, its charred form glowing, its eyes fixed on him. Jasper sprayed the extinguisher, the foam hissing, but the figure didn't move. The scorch mark spread, the pavement cracking, and the voice roared, "Help me!" The figure lunged, its fiery hands brushing Jasper's arm, leaving a burn that seared through his jacket. Jasper screamed, stumbling back, and the figure vanished, the lot plunging into darkness. Inside, the radio blared static, the voice echoing through the cooler, the lights, the walls. The scorch mark appeared on the counter, black and jagged, creeping toward the horseshoe. Jasper smashed the radio, the static stopping, but the burn on his arm throbbed, a charred handprint. He called the sheriff, babbling about the figure, the fire, the voice. They found nothing, no scorch mark, no figure, just the old pump, untouched. Jasper quit that morning, leaving a note. Asterisk, the station's cursed. I'm done. Asterisk, he moved to Tulsa, taking a job at a hardware store, day shifts only. But the voice followed. In quiet moments, he'd hear it static, a scream, I'm burning. Sometimes he'd wake to the smell of smoke, a scorch mark on his floor, fading by morning. He kept Henry's article, a reminder of the night he saw the radio static man. The gas station sat on the edge of town, where the suburban sprawl of strip malls and fast food joints gave way to the dark expanse of cornfields. Quick Stop Fuel and Mart was a relic, its neon sign buzzing erratically, the red and blue letters casting a ghostly glow over the lot. At 10:30 p.m., the world outside was a patchwork of sodium vapor streetlights and shadowed corners, the kind of place where you could feel the weight of solitude pressing in. Noah Carter slouched behind the counter, his sneakers propped on a stool, a half-empty energy drink sweating beside the register. At 28, Noah was a lanky figure with a mop of dark hair and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. He'd been working the night shift for 6 months, ever since his band broke up and the bills started piling up. The job was mind-numbing restocking cigarettes, mopping the floor, dealing with the occasional drunk, but it paid enough to keep his apartment and his beat-up Honda. The real cost was the hours, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., when the world felt like it belonged to someone else. The station was quiet tonight, the only sound the faint buzz of the canopy lights outside. Noah glanced at the security monitor, a grainy feed showing the 4 pumps bathed in flickering light. The canopy lights had been acting up for weeks, blinking on and off like they were trying to send a message. Marty, the manager, kept promising to fix them, but Noah wasn't holding his breath. He flipped open his phone, scrolling through texts from his ex-bandmate Jake, who was still trying to get him back for one last gig. At 11:15 p.m., the lights went out. It wasn't a gradual dimming or a flicker. The entire canopy pumps, lot, and all plunged into darkness, like someone had flipped a switch. Noah's head snapped up, his phone slipping from his hand. The monitor showed nothing but black, the cameras useless without light. He leaned over the counter, peering through the glass doors. The streetlights along the road were still on, casting a faint glow, but the station itself was a void. Great, Noah muttered, grabbing the flashlight from under the counter. He stepped outside, the air cool and thick with the scent of gasoline and damp asphalt. The canopy lights were silent, no buzzing, no hum. He shone the flashlight upward, expecting to see a blown bulb or a loose wire, but the fixtures looked intact. He tapped one with the flashlight, the metal clanging softly. Nothing. Back inside, he checked the breaker box in the storage room. All switches were in place, no tripped circuits. He flicked the main power off and on, hoping for a reset. The station's interior lights stayed steady, but the canopy remained dark. Noah sighed, jotting a note for Marty. Canopy lights out again. 11:15 p.m., he returned to the counter, the silence heavier now, broken only by the faint hum of the drink cooler. At 11:17 p.m., the lights snapped back on. The monitor flickered to life, showing the pumps bathed in their usual sickly glow. Noah exhaled, shaking his head. "Stupid wiring," he said to no one. But as he glanced at the monitor, his stomach twisted. Something moved in the corner of the frame, a shadow, quick and fleeting, darting between pumps 3 and 4. He rewound the footage, his fingers clumsy on the controls. There it was again, a dark shape, human-like but blurred, as if it didn't belong in the light. Then it was gone. The next night, Noah came prepared. He brought a heavier flashlight, a thermos of coffee, and a pair of earbuds to drown out the silence. The canopy lights were still on when he clocked in, but he didn't trust them. He'd spent the day replaying the footage in his mind, the shadow lingering like a bad dream. He told himself it was a trick of the light, maybe a stray cat or a glitch in the camera. But the unease clung to him, a cold weight in his chest. At 11:15 p.m., it happened again. The canopy lights went out, plunging the lot into darkness. Noah's heart thudded as he grabbed the flashlight and checked the monitor. Black. He stepped outside, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the night. The air felt different, thicker, like it was pressing against his skin. He swept the light across the pumps, half expecting to see the shadow from the footage. Nothing but empty asphalt and the glint of metal nozzles. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching on the gravel at the edge of the lot. Noah froze, the flashlight beam trembling in his hand. "Who's there?" He called, his voice swallowed by the darkness. The footsteps stopped. He swung the light toward the sound, catching only the edge of the cornfield beyond the station. The stalks swayed faintly, though there was no wind. Back inside, he locked the door, his pulse racing. The lights came back on at 11:17 p.m., right on schedule. The monitor showed the pumps, empty and still. Noah rewound the footage, his mouth dry. There it was again, the shadow, darting between pumps 3 and 4, faster this time, almost taunting. It paused for a split second, as if looking at the camera, before vanishing into the darkness. Noah didn't tell Marty. He didn't tell anyone. He spent the rest of the shift with the radio on, the volume cranked to drown out the silence. But every few minutes, he glanced at the monitor, expecting the shadow to return. By the third night, Noah was fraying at the edges. He hadn't slept well, his dreams filled with flickering lights and footsteps that followed him down endless highways. He'd called Jake during the day, hoping for a distraction, but Jake had brushed him off, saying he sounded paranoid. "It's just a gas station, man. Get some sleep." Noah wanted to believe him, but the station felt alive now, like it was watching him. He brought a notebook, jotting down every detail. Asterisk 11:15 p.m., lights out. 11:17 p.m., lights on. Shadow at pumps 3 to 4. Asterisk, he checked the breaker box again, even called the power company, but they found no issues. The canopy lights were a mystery, and Noah was starting to think they weren't the problem. At 11:15 p.m., the lights went out. Noah was ready this time, standing by the door with his flashlight. The footsteps came again, louder, closer, circling the lot. He gripped the flashlight like a weapon, his breath shallow. "Show yourself," he shouted, his voice cracking. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment, the silence was absolute. Then, a flicker. Not the canopy lights, but something else, a tiny flame, like a lighter, glowing at pump 4. Noah's heart stopped. In the faint light, he saw a figure. It was tall, humanoid, but wrong its limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The flame illuminated no face, just a void where features should have been. The figure stood motionless, the lighters flamed steady despite the still air. Noah stumbled back, the flashlight slipping from his hand. The figure didn't move, but the flame grew brighter, casting long shadows that danced across the pumps. He scrambled inside, locking the door, his hands shaking so badly he could barely turn the key. The lights snapped back on at 11:17 p.m., and the monitor showed the lot empty, the flame gone. He checked the footage, rewinding to 11:15. The shadow was there, darting between pumps, but when the flame appeared, the figure was clear for a single frame. It wasn't human. Its body was a mass of darkness, its head a blank oval, and the lighter's flame burned in its hand, impossibly bright. Noah paused the footage, his stomach churning. The figure was looking at the camera, and he swore it was looking at him. Noah didn't go home after his shift. He drove to the library, his eyes bloodshot, his thermos empty. He needed answers. The gas station had been there since the 70s, and he figured if something was haunting it, there'd be a record. He spent hours combing through old newspapers, local blogs, anything he could find. He found it in a faded article from 1989. Fire at Quick Stop Fuel and Mart claims one life. A night shift worker, Daniel Reese, had died in a freak fire at the station. The cause was unknown, but witnesses reported a strange glow in the lot before the flames erupted. Daniel had been alone, locking up for the night. The article mentioned his lighter, a cheap BC he always carried, found melted at the scene. Noah's blood ran cold. He printed the article and drove back to the station, arriving just before his shift. He confronted Marty, shoving the article in his face. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Marty, a grizzled man in his 60s, paled. "That was a long time ago, kid. Don't go stirring up trouble." But his eyes darted to the canopy, and Noah knew he was hiding something. That night, Noah brought a cross, a gift from his grandmother, and taped it to the counter. He didn't know if it would help, but he was desperate. He watched the clock, dreading 11:15. At 11:15 p.m., the lights went out. Noah stood at the counter, the cross in one hand, the flashlight in the other. The footsteps came, circling faster, louder, like a predator closing in. The air grew heavy, the temperature dropping until Noah's breath fogged in front of him. He shone the flashlight through the glass doors, but the beam seemed to weaken, swallowed by the darkness. The flame appeared at pump 4, brighter than before, casting grotesque shadows across the lot. The figure was there, taller now, its limbs stretching impossibly long. It held the lighter, the flame unwavering, and began to move toward the station. Noah's heart pounded, his mouth dry. He clutched the cross, whispering a half-remembered prayer. The door rattled, though he'd locked it. The figure was inches away, separated only by glass. Its head tilted, and the flame illuminated a face that wasn't a face, a swirling void, with pinpricks of light where eyes should have been. The voice came, not from the figure, but from everywhere inside Noah's head, in the hum of the cooler, in the buzz of the neon sign. "You see me," it said, a hiss like burning paper. Noah screamed, throwing the cross at the door. The flame went out, and the lights snapped back on at 11:17 p.m. The figure was gone, the lot empty, but the cross lay on the floor, charred black, the metal warped as if melted. Noah quit the next day. He didn't explain, just left a note for Marty. "I'm done." He moved to a new city, got a job at a warehouse, and swore he'd never work nights again. But the flame followed him. In his dreams, he saw it a tiny glow in the distance, growing brighter, the figure's shadow stretching toward him. Sometimes he'd wake to the smell of smoke, though nothing was burning. He never went back to Quick Stop, but he heard from Jake that the canopy lights still went out every night at 11:15. And sometimes, late at night, Noah would see a flicker outside his window, a small flame, burning in the dark, waiting. The Starlight Fuel and Mini-Mart sat on the outskirts of Willow Creek, a sleepy town where the main road stretched into darkness, flanked by endless fields of soybeans and corn. Its fluorescent sign buzzed faintly, the word "open" flickering like a dying star. At 1:23 a.m., the gas station was a lonely beacon, its lights casting long shadows across the empty lot. Inside, Clara Nguyen stood behind the counter, her fingers tapping restlessly on the chipped laminate. Clara was 26, a recent transplant to Willow Creek after leaving her job at a call center in Columbus. She'd moved to care for her aging mother, taking the night shift at Starlight because it was the only job that fit her schedule. The work was monotonous, ringing up energy drinks, wiping down the coffee machine, and dodging the occasional drunk. But the solitude was the hardest part. The station felt like a bubble, cut off from the world, where time moved slower and the silence was almost alive. The security monitor sat to her left, its grainy feed showing the 4 pumps outside, bathed in the harsh glow of the canopy lights. The radio played softly, a Statiki country station that Clara kept on to fill the void. The cooler in the back hummed, a low drone that sometimes seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. She glanced at the clock. 1:25 a.m., another 6 hours to go. Then a crackle broke the silence, not from the radio, but from the pump speaker system, a relic used to communicate with customers at the pumps. Clara frowned, turning down the radio. The speaker crackled again, followed by a faint, distorted voice. "Help me," it whispered, barely audible over the static. "I'm trapped." Clara's breath caught. She leaned over the counter, checking the monitor. The lot was empty, no cars, no customers. The pumps stood silent, their nozzles untouched. She pressed the intercom button, her voice unsteady. "Hello? Is someone out there?" No response, just more static, and then the voice again, clearer this time. "Help me. I'm trapped." In the trunk. Her heart pounded. She grabbed the flashlight from under the counter and stepped outside, the cold night air biting her skin. The lot was still, the only sound the distant chirping of crickets. She swept the flashlight across the pumps, half expecting to see someone hiding. Nothing. She checked each pump, even tapping the nozzles to see if they were loose. Everything was in place. Back inside, she rewound the security footage. The feed showed the lot, empty and unchanged, from 1:20 a.m. to 1:25. No cars, no people. But the speaker crackled again as she watched, the voice repeating its plea, "Help me. I'm trapped." Clara turned off the intercom, her hands shaking. The voice stopped, but the silence felt heavier, like the station itself was holding its breath. Clara didn't sleep well that day. She'd told her mother about the voice, but Lin Nguyen, frail and distracted, had dismissed it as exhaustion. "You work too hard, Clara. Your mind plays tricks." But Clara couldn't shake the memory of the voice, its desperation, its clarity. She'd checked the speaker system before leaving, finding no loose wires or malfunctions. It was as if the voice had come from nowhere. She returned to Starlight at 10 p.m., her stomach knotted with dread. The station looked the same flickering sign, buzzing lights, empty lot, but it felt different, like a place she no longer recognized. She brought a notebook, jotting down the previous night's events. Asterisk 125A, voice on pump speaker. "Help me. I'm trapped." No one in lot. Asterisk. She taped a small jade pendant, a gift from her mother, to the counter for luck. At 125A, the speaker crackled again. Clara froze, her pen hovering over the notebook. "Help me," the voice whispered, louder this time, tinged with panic. "I'm trapped in the trunk. It's dark. Please." She checked the monitor empty. She pressed the intercom button, her voice trembling. "Who are you? Where are you?" The static surged, and the voice replied, "Under the pumps." "I'm under the pumps." Clara's blood ran cold. She grabbed the flashlight and stepped outside, the air colder than the night before. The pumps stood like sentinels, their shadows stretching across the asphalt. She shone the light at the base of pump 3, where the voice seemed loudest. The concrete was cracked, stained with years of oil and grime, but nothing unusual. She knelt, her fingers brushing the ground, and felt a faint vibration, like a heartbeat pulsing through the earth. Back inside, she checked the footage. The lot was empty, but the audio feed captured the voice, clear and unmistakable. She played it again, her skin prickling. The voice wasn't just desperate, it was familiar, though she couldn't place why. She turned off the speaker, but the words echoed in her mind. Under the pumps. By the third night, Clara was unraveling. She hadn't told anyone else about the voice, afraid they'd think she was losing it. She'd spent the day searching online for anything about Starlight Fuel and Minimart, but found only a few Yelp reviews complaining about the coffee. The voice haunted her dreams, a woman's voice, pleading, trapped in darkness. She brought a pocket knife, a rosary from her childhood, and a thermos of tea to keep her alert. At 1:25 a.m., the speaker crackled. "Help me," the voice said, now a scream muffled by static. "They locked me in." "I can't breathe." Clara's heart raced. She checked the monitor, still empty. She stepped outside, the flashlight beam trembling in her hand. The air was thick, the smell of gasoline stronger than usual. She approached pump 3, her eyes fixed on the concrete base. Then she saw them, handprints. Faint, muddy outlines pressed into the pavement, as if someone had clawed their way up from below. Clara stumbled back, her breath hitching. The prints were small, like a woman's, the fingers splayed in desperation. She shone the light closer, and the prints seemed to shimmer, like wet mud catching the light. But the pavement was dry. Inside, she checked the footage. The lot was empty at 1:25 a.m., but the audio captured the voice, now sobbing. "They left me, under the pumps." Clara's hands shook as she rewound the tape. For a single frame, the camera showed something of faint. Translucent figure crouched at pump 3, its hands pressed against the ground. Then it was gone. Clara didn't sleep that day. She drove to the Willow Creek Library, her notebook clutched like a lifeline. She searched old newspapers, her eyes burning from lack of sleep. After hours, she found it. A 1994 article, "Local Woman Missing After Stop at Starlight Fuel." Emily Carter, 29, had vanished after stopping at the station late at night. Her car was found abandoned at pump 3, the keys still in the ignition. Police suspected foul play, but had no leads. A grainy photo showed Emily dark hair, wide eyes, a face that felt eerily familiar. Clara confronted Mike, the station's owner, before her next shift. Mike was a gruff man in his 50s, with a permanent scowl and a habit of avoiding questions. She showed him the article, her voice shaking. "What happened to Emily Carter?" Mike's face paled, his eyes darting to the pumps. "That was before my time, kid. Drop it." But his hands trembled as he lit a cigarette, and Clara knew he was lying. She spent the day digging deeper, calling the local sheriff's office and posing as a student researching cold cases. The deputy was reluctant, but confirmed Emily's car had been found with a full tank of gas, the receipt still in the glove box. There were rumors of a drifter seen at the station that night, but no evidence. The case was still open, unsolved. That night, Clara brought a crowbar, determined to find answers. She taped Emily's photo to the counter, next to the jade pendant and rosary. The station felt different, darker, the air heavy with the scent of earth and decay. She watched the clock, dreading 1:25 a.m. When the speaker crackled, the voice was a wail. "They buried me," it screamed. "Under the pumps, please dig." Clara's heart stopped. She grabbed the crowbar and ran outside, the flashlight tucked under her arm. The handprints were there again, clearer, deeper, as if freshly pressed. She knelt at pump 3, prying at the concrete. It was loose, crumbling under her efforts, revealing a layer of dark, damp earth. She dug, her hands blistering, until she hit something hard, a metal box, rusted and cold. The speaker crackled behind her, the voice now a whisper. "Open it." Clara's hands shook as she pried the lid off. Inside was a locket, engraved with the C. Emily Carter. The air grew colder, the canopy lights flickering. Clara looked up, and there she was, a figure at the edge of the lot, translucent, her face pale and tear-streaked. "You found me," she whispered, her voice echoing through the speaker. Clara screamed, dropping the locket. The figure vanished, but the speaker erupted in static, the voice now a chorus of screams. "They buried me! They buried me!" The canopy lights went out, plunging the lot into darkness. Clara stumbled back inside, locking the door, her heart pounding. The monitor showed nothing but static, but the handprints were now inside, smeared across the counter. She called the sheriff, babbling about the locket, the voice, the prints. They arrived at dawn, digging under pump 3. They found bones, human, female, buried decades ago. The locket matched Emily Carter's description. The case was reopened, but Clara didn't stay to see it through. She quit that morning, leaving the locket with the sheriff. She moved back to Columbus, taking a day job at a bookstore. But the voice followed her. In quiet moments, she'd hear it, a faint whisper, pleading, "Help me." Sometimes she'd wake to find muddy handprints on her apartment floor, though she lived on the 3rd story. She never returned to Willow Creek, but she kept Emily's photo, a reminder of the night she answered the voice under the pumps.